Entering the Mayo Experience.
Mayo Experience. Mayo Experience. Mayo Experience. Experience.
Welcome to the Pat Mayo Experience, presented by DraftKings. Bring in Ben Rasa from Stokastic.com today to have a chat. If you haven't played in the Listeners League yet for the Memorial Tournament, the link is down in the description, so you can go join that now. Reminder to smash the like while you're here as well. It's always good times. Ben, it is we're recording this a little bit early because it's a holiday for you, and I'm going golfing on Wednesday, and the show is going to come out on Wednesday, and I just always get confused about holidays. So I'm like, yeah, I went to ask you, and I was like, oh shit, it's a holiday, but you're not doing anything.
No, definitely not. Going to maybe a little barbecue later, but yeah, I'm happy to hop on, have some fun. Going golfing Wednesday. You've been playing a lot?
Yeah, I think I'm like 7-8 rounds in now.
Okay, it's not bad.
Unfortunately, my course is currently shut down due to forest fires.
I saw that. Absurd.
Affecting where you are, weirdly enough.
Yeah, so I had no idea about any of this, and the sun, like when it's setting, is this bizarre color. It's been that way for last couple days or like the last week. I didn't know what it was from, and apparently it's from the fires.
Well, maybe that's not our fire then, because our fire only happened yesterday. There are like massive wildfires out west, so that would make more sense.
Well, it's from the fires. That's what I've been told. How many fires are going on?
I mean, like Alberta is like California. It's just dry and full of wildfire.
Yeah, that'll do it. But yeah, I don't know what's going on. I saw those pictures you tweeted. It just looks not like real life.
No, it was kind of crazy. Like I didn't even realize it was happening, and then I got like one of those like emergency text alerts on my phone. I was like, "The hell is this?" And then I had
Amber alerts.
Yeah, I had to go look into I have a few friends that live out there. My golf course is out in that area as well. It seems to as of right now, it seems to have halted at on a highway. So apparently the fire doesn't travel well across highways, as it turns out. So hopefully, my friends they've had to evacuate their house just due to precaution. Everything is standing at the moment, but hopefully that'll clear by the time people watch this. Hopefully it's all over.
Hopefully there's a lot of things like this I don't really understand. You would think they could invent something that could extinguish them, but obviously that's a little more complicated than it seems.
Like a novelty-sized fire extinguisher?
Yeah, like a gigantic blanket, a huge blanket. You smother that, but again, it can't be that simple. But I'm stunned that they can't stop it. I really am.
Well, the only bits of material I've ever seen big enough to what you're talking about are when I travel to America and see American flags. So I think all of the fabric is being used up on those.
That's probably the opportunity cost. If we took all the flags, we could build this unstoppable thing, and we would have no more fires.
I always forget it too, because usually when I travel to the States, I'm usually downtown in a city or whatever, and it just looks like every other city in the world. All cities are kind of the same. But this time we did some venturing off the beaten path. We went up to Northern California, drove through the countryside a little bit, just American flags everywhere. I always forget it. When I lived in New Jersey, it was kind of the same thing. You don't spend that much time in New Jersey, really, I suppose, unless you fly into Newark or you live there. And just going to each of these weird, they're townships in New Jersey, right? The little communities.
Yeah, I think that's what they're called.
Yeah, I feel like they're called something anyway. Just American flags everywhere. Do you have 8 American flags outside of your house? I'm just being to different countries worldwide, and even in my own country, you just don't see that amount of flags.
Yeah, no, there's flags all over the place. Not to take shots at my own country, I don't have a flag. I see plenty, and you're right. Where I am, I'm in the suburbs for sure. You don't see them as much. When I drive, when I go to Saratoga and stuff, and I go up to upstate New York, there's flag, just every house has a flag of some type. So yeah, we're a big flag country. What can I say?
Yeah, lots of flag. The flag industry is absolutely booming. Apparently, you're absolutely flush with cash, I assume, at the moment.
I'm gonna buy a lot of flags.
Hey, you're gonna buy a lot of flags. You can fund this barbecue. Yeah. Grillo finally wins for the first time in 7 years.
I mean, it was first off, obviously, in Pete Grillo, I'm not complaining, but I'm gonna complain. I didn't think I needed to hedge, and then I was certain that there was no need to hedge, and then I was forced to hedge at a terrible number in the playoff because I've never, A, I didn't know there was water over there, and B, I've never heard more confusion from the morons, the rules expert who's saying that he can swing at the moving ball. That doesn't seem like it's in the realm of possibilities. Did you hear him say that?
I was putting my kids to bed at the time, so I had it streaming on my phone, but I didn't have any sound, and I couldn't figure out what the hell was going on. It was just Grillo standing there watching the ball go back towards the tee
The
box.
wrong way.
And then I finally was like, I got to figure out what's going on here. And all I heard them say was it had been too much time for him to actually play the ball, so he had to take the drop from whenever he put it down on the concrete to take his drop, which was a good choice as it turns out. But I don't understand why you would have to play the moving ball.
Yeah, they're like, oh well, he can just swing if he wants to. Like, yeah, that's what he's gonna do in the river. Just take a cut, like Phil. I don't think that's the answer. And then I didn't understand. Not that I wanted him to play that, but if the ball is still moving, how could there be a time expiration? Because, like, it's still. I don't know. I didn't understand any of that. I didn't know what a viaduct was. I had to Google that. Lot of new experiences. Pete Grillo. Then he's playing with those kids. I guess worked out, but we got the W. It's never felt so good to cash a golf outright my whole life.
Is that the craziest golf bet you can remember winning?
Yeah, I think so, honestly, because Rory's never won the Masters and he probably never will. So, I've had like I've bet a lot of stupid guys and I've caught some decent numbers over the years, but for it to happen like that with Grillo, I truly, after he got through, I really thought it was over. Like I was not prepared for another sweat within there. If he would have lost that, I'm not sure I would have had to pretend that the barbecue was earlier and just canceled this. I would have been so mad.
Does this mean you can stop betting him now? Because this happened to me with Luke List. When Luke List finally won, I ended up like up money lifetime on Luke List because of the hit that ended up coming in with him. You know, he had cashed the each ways along the way. But then I never felt compelled to bet him ever again.
I'm gonna bet him this week just because A, he likes Memorial and why not? Then I'll move my focus onto the laundry list of absolute, like I have we've got Bez and Fleetwood and Brandon Harkins, who's not on the tour, Bud Cauley, who I'm not sure is on the earth. A couple other guys. Like I have such a long list of guys that I've bet a million times that have never won. So this is the first of a lot of bucket list items here.
Well, who is that? The entire list of your guys? Because I've put Bhatia onto my list of my guys. I'm just betting him now.
Oh yeah. I mean, I don't have it's funny. I don't have as many like new additions. Bez, Fleetwood, EVR is so irrelevant now. He's like kind of forced me to give up on him. I just can't do it anymore. Benny on, obviously, like most of us. Jaeger, I think, is probably my newest addition. I just keep betting him. I wonder if he's ever gonna win.
I don't know. He should be playing in the, I guess there's an elevated event at Memorial, which he is in. So he probably wants to win the $5 million, but, maybe he could play in the German Open this week and win that.
No, that's, you know who's going to win that, don't you?
Yannick Paul?
Apparently that is the answer, but no, Kiefer's over there.
Oh, I forgot about Max Kiefer. He won me that big bet. I totally forgot about that. Yes, he did.
On my birthday.
And you didn't bet him?
Yep. No, I did not.
He was one of your...
him probably like
he was
5 years in a row.
Yeah, he was one of your Euro guys every week, forever.
Every week. Now there's a new dude, Tiger somebody over there.
Who?
A German guy named Tiger.
Tiger?
I'm going to Google.
Yeah, who is this guy?
Tiger German golf. Tiger Christensen.
Okay. That's a real guy?
That's a real guy.
He's the 1,000 to 1 to win this week.
Yeah, so only takes one.
Yeah,
I don't know if he's a professional, but he is in the tournament.
I feel like where I pay far less attention to the European tour, that my guys are just always kind of my guys that I bet. Although some of them are like really good now, and I don't like betting them at the odds. Like when Thirsty Lawrence was getting up to 15-1 and stuff like that. I prefer him in like the 40 to 50-1 range. But all my other guys have like kind of dropped off the face of the earth. Yeah, like Guido, Wacky Valimaki, they're all down in the 60-1 range. Who's the other one that I really enjoyed about? Well, I guess it's Lawrence, who's playing in the Memorial. Ryan Fox is playing in the Memorial. Unfortunately, all my guys graduated to the PGA Tour, and they're like unbettable now. Although
my guys went the other way.
I'm betting Fox too. So
Jocko, he's gone. I think he retired.
I think he's on the Sunshine Tour.
Sunshine Tour. Xander Lombard, I think he's somewhere else. Obviously Kiefer Bjork is still pretty good. I bet him occasionally.
Yeah, but he's always he's like the Xander of the European tour. Like you go look at him, like he doesn't ever seem to win anything, yet he's the fourth favorite every week.
Yeah, I can confirm that, but I don't know. I rely on Sky and your boys for they pull out guys that I've never heard of, and I just tail that.
Unfortunately, the Kabugi man couldn't do it for us earlier this year. Although the guy that we bet like 3 years ago in that Kenya tournament at like 3,000-1, I think he won a Sunshine Tour event this week.
Yeah, that's what happens. The people from like the Safari Zone or wherever they were playing, some of those names, they reappear, and then I'm like, oh yeah, I bet that guy once, but I don't know. There's too many. Do you bet a lot of live?
Not really. I usually just bet Bryson every week.
Okay.
And he never
I
wins.
was betting Bryson. No.
I did
not bet HV3. Wasn't close.
No, good. That's something that Jeff and I didn't bring up on the Monday show, was his first win in America. So shout out HV3 on that one. Everyone likes HV3. As Tim Andercuss called him no less than a week ago, a giant star. Like Liv got all the big stars, like Harold.
He's well on his way, little by little. Maybe a couple ways to go. But
I had to use like 3 separate books to get down money on these Brooks Koepka head-to-heads last week on Live, and it almost didn't work.
That was one. I saw him having a good old time at the Panthers game and making the rounds everywhere else. So I saw that. Yeah, that's even with Grillo. Like I spread it around a little bit to a couple different books, and I didn't catch the best number everywhere. I did get the 100-1 on FanDuel though. But yeah, so it's been good. There's just so much golf, it's hard to keep up.
Do you like the elevated events happening so frequently where you get these stacked fields like every 3 weeks? I kind of enjoyed the Colonial. Like I watched a ton of Colonial. I thought it was great, but that's also me, and I'm going to watch golf regardless. I can see why they want to pad all these tournaments into one, but it's not like Memorial was going to be a bad tournament. Everyone was going to play it anyway.
I like it for betting, of course, because if you can survive, you get some cool numbers, but it does kind of suck that it's like at Colonial, it felt like a lot of guys could realistically win. And I watch so much golf that I don't mind seeing people like my parents are a perfect litmus test. Like they watch a good amount of golf, they bet golf, but they're like, who's this Shank guy? And I'm like, yeah, he's around, but they don't know who that is. Like they want to see Ricky. But for me, like that's awesome. Like I want to see these guys that I feel like I know because I play DFS every week. I like the weird events.
I meant to ask you, it kind of came to my head when I was writing down topics for us to talk about, was you and I were doing those shows at FanVice together in like 2015 or 2016, whatever it might be. And that's when I met you. How did you end up at FanVice?
So, well, that's kind of a bizarre, not really a bizarre story. I just randomly ended up there. I quit my job to play DFS full time. And I was just like, I kind of like golf. Like I started playing a ton of DFS golf. They didn't have any golf. And I was just like, I would write an article. So like I happened to message them just being like, hey, if you ever want to like a golf writer, I would like potentially do that. I know you don't have any golf. And then like anything else, somehow that actually transpired. Totally random. Never in a million years would I think that I would do stuff like this.
Yeah,
Very shady.
well, it's weird. Like, what were you doing before you quit? Like, what was your job before you played DFS full time?
I was in finance.
All right, that tracks.
It's like doing
That tracks with
yeah,
like
just stupid.
everyone from that period who I remember talking to Dink about the same thing. I think that's like the world that he came from too. A lot of people seem to either come from math degrees or finance jobs. And they were just like, fuck this. I'm just going to play daily fantasy as a job.
Yeah, that kind of summed it up. Like I played a ton of poker at one point, and then poker got shut down, and I was just like doing finance stuff and just yeah, I don't, I was ironically of all people, I owe it all to my therapist because he was the one. He was like, find something that you can do daily, and I had heard about DFS and from a friend, and I was just like, yeah, I don't like fantasy sports at all. Never played them, never will. Just not my thing. But like the concept of making a lineup daily, I was like, all right, maybe I'll force myself to do this. And then I quickly realized like, I think this might be pretty exploitable. And then I started to really rev it up.
What would you say the difference between being able to exploit the games now is versus then?
So then there was, I think the concepts were if you knew how to just like actively not screw up, you would basically be fine. And you could beat the games by just like not playing. Like when it first started, there was like, oh, like there were no like WDs next to guys' names. It's like this guy's not playing and 8% of the field doesn't know that. Like the most simplistic things were not even remotely solved. So I thought it was about minimizing mistakes. Now I think you got to go out and do it because like everybody knows everything and there's so much information out there. You're not going to sneak one by anybody.
There was a site called Draft Day back then. And to kind of pile on with the WD type thing, they had, I guess, what would have been like the first iteration of like Prize Picks and Underdog and those sorts of things, where it was like the pick'em games. But they had like their actual daily fantasy, and this was just like a side part of their site. But every week, like we made someone found it, or I think someone DM'd me on Twitter about it, and they were like, hey, they're posting lines right now with guys that have withdrawn from the tournament. And now, they would void those. But even the sites at the time had no clue what was going on. So you could go get like 5-1, and all you really had to do was win one of the actual head-to-heads, because the other two head-to-heads featured like Tiger, who withdrew at the last second or a week before or whatever, versus someone who was playing in the tournament, and they graded them all as winners. It was awesome.
When I first got into DFS, it was college football. It was legal back then in New York. And I remember the first tournaments I played, I was like, half these guys already graduated. They're not on the team. And I was just like, I don't really understand. So like just knowing the roster was like, oh, 30% of the players just took a wide receiver he got drafted. It was absurd. And like those edges are long, long gone.
Why did you want to get into content? Was it just like something to do daily at the same time? Like, hey, I'm playing daily fantasy. Because a lot of people will say, and I've heard this question over time too. It's like if you're so good at betting, or if you're so good at daily fantasy, or whatever it might be, why wouldn't you just want to keep all of that to yourself? And I mean, the answer is for a lot of people, it's like, well, it's gambling either way that you're going to do it. Like your income is going to go up and it's going to go down based on whether you win or whether you lose. Maybe on the downswings, it's a nice way to have some guaranteed income coming in. I feel like that's the answer for most people, that it's a floor at least of everything that you do. But some people just aren't made out for content. Some people try to do it and are really bad at it. And it seemed like you never wanted to do it, yet turned out to be really good at it.
Yeah, like so socially, like I don't know. I never like struggle socially, or I haven't in my life. Like I'm pretty comfortable out and whatnot, even though now I'm going out. It's just like I don't have time for this. But I never wanted to be like, I don't like public speaking. I don't like stuff like this. So it was nothing like that. And I get that now. Like there is obviously something super comforting about a floor, about just like stable, reliable. But that was 50 steps ahead of what I was thinking. It was just like, oh, like this just like gives me something to do. Like I don't have like a real job. right now. Like this is just like an activity to kind of keep me busy, and I'm already doing the research. So like, why not? And truly, if you would have said to me, chances you ever get on camera, I would have said like literally stone dead, 0%. I would donate both my kidneys before I would ever get in front of a camera.
So were those shows that we did then, like the first times that you were on camera?
Oh yeah,
Really?
100%. Yeah, absolutely.
See, I did not know that.
Yeah.
I know where FanVice got all of its money from, but they were throwing some money around.
Isn't that the truth?
I mean,
yeah,
they had that big. I mean, I didn't see you jumping off of a boat as
No,
a part
I
of your
missed-
intro video, but like I remember
I missed that.
they got me, and I was collecting a nice little sum, a nice little side gig for me. They had Evan Silva for a while too, so I assume he was making 10 times what I was making, but it's a lot of money to be just chucking around to try to get some views.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of that was like before. Again, I wasn't there for that long. It got
Shut down.
acquired after that, but it was just like I wasn't even remotely thinking like a lot of people, and I think it's an awesome industry, are like, oh, I'm looking for an in the end, I'll get started, I'll build up, and like that's how you do it. That was never ever a consideration at all.
Well, it's funny because that's led to you having, a different approach. I feel like that's what stands out because I was thinking about this the other day that all of the sites are kind of exactly the same now. That it's funny, like, because I mean, talking to Tambo, he left Run Pure, but Run Pure kind of took over. I don't know, they seem different, at least in terms of what their marketing is. And it feels like the first site that really stood out amongst all the other ones, like between you guys, Skokastic, FTN, ETR. Like great projections. That's why people come. And, sort of the names behind it. But like, here are the tools. Like there's not necessarily like a personality that, ruminates from inside the company. Like the last thing I can feel like before Run Pure was like Tommy, and Tommy just stood out like no other in the space.
Oh, he stood out. Yeah. I mean, it's true. And it just shows that like I mean, you see it more than me, probably exponentially. Like every single angle is going to have a lot of people that are just like, this fits with what I do. And then there's going to be a lot of other people that are just like, this is too boring, or this is terrible information, or this is too much energy. This is not enough. So it's just like, I don't know. I think for me, I kind of just found, or at least I try to do this, just like, don't worry about it. If you believe in what you're doing, people will see it. Don't, I'm pretty laid back. I don't know. Some people have just, it feels like they're playing a character, and that's amazing. I don't know how people can do that day after day. It would grind me to nothing. I would be just dust if I tried that.
It'd be tough to keep up if it wasn't
hard.
If it wasn't some sort of natural extension of what you do anyway. I hear like wrestlers talk about that in a weird way, like the ones that are playing themselves, but like it's not really themselves. It's just some sort of extension of themselves that's turned up to 100 at all times. But the best characters always have some element of truth in them. But I don't know, especially like with people being on social media all day, every day, and then doing videos and doing content, like it'd be hard to keep it up, or it would start to impact your real life and like you'd lose touch on reality.
You would bleed into your character. Like, I think, I mean, I don't know. But yeah, it's like everything. It's obviously progressed, and I'm sure it will continue to progress, and new avenues will open up. You see it now. I mean, just people who are so good with social media can get huge followings really quickly. It's an incredible skill to have. I see in the betting space, big time accounts. They build right up with content that's, not overly advanced analysis.
I saw Dr. Jesse Morse put this out. It's been a friend of the show over the years. He was talking about charging for a product that I think that was previously free. And he was asking how much would people pay for a product, like per year? Would it be like never ever pay for anything fantasy related? Would it be between $10 and $20, 20 to 50, 50 or over, 100 or over, whatever it might be? And like the vast majority of people were just like, fuck this, I would never pay for anything. I think that because we work in this space, which, I mean, a lot of it requires people to pay for things. Like my show is always free, but I do have, like, I'm a part owner of Run the Sims. People should go to Run the Sims right now. If you go and buy Run the Sims, I will get money from that. I mean, everyone kind of knows that, but like that's that's an upsell that I have. And I always wanted to upsell information. Like when Moose and I started Fantasy National, there was like, we made a conscious effort. Like there can't be picks on this site. I don't want to be responsible for like giving people bad advice. And like, if people want to watch me for free and tail my losing bets and then they lose, well, that's on them. If they're actively paying for things and it's losing advice, then I would like start to feel very bad about it. But if I have an information site like, hey, here's where you can go to make your own decisions, then I feel pretty good about that. So that's why I went that route. And maybe it's just me being cowardly with that, or even just knowing that I'm not like great at making the picks, that I didn't want to upcharge to that. But it just turns out the vast majority of people don't want to pay for any of this stuff. And like you said, there's a lot of people now just coming into this space for free. And I do they do it out of like, they're not being paid for it. Even if they build like big TikTok followings, like you don't get paid that much from that.
Yeah, I don't know if there's like a calculated plan of like I'm gonna do this and then springboard to something. I don't know if it's just a new maybe I'm dating myself, like a new era of people where everybody is a pseudo influencer and it's just like a natural part of like your day to day. I'm not really sure, but I totally get that. I mean, I think again, it's just there's a lot of different people doing it a lot of different ways. Both ends of the spectrum, like most things, I think are probably not great. If you fall somewhere in the middle, you have your balance, you'll probably be all right.
And I think it's tough now, especially when people are trying to charge for things. And this has always been true, especially in this space, that I see people getting mad at people giving it away for free. It's like, well, that's how you started, by giving it away for free. Like, people don't want to be doing this for free forever. They're trying to work towards some sort of end goal, unless it's just for laughs for them, which is great. But you can't be mad that people don't want to pay for anything when there's just a bulk of free information.
And it's very hard, like again with betting and stuff, unless you're diligently tracking stuff over a long period of time, it's all noise. Like, people get on a hot streak randomly and a cold streak randomly, and people draw a lot of conclusions based off that. And I'm no different. So it's like, that's just kind of the nature of it. And I don't know. I think with stuff happening so quickly, it's a lot of people are getting thrown into this ecosystem, and it's fascinating to see kind of how it's developing.
Well, it's funny, too, from like the large corporation end of everything, that there's so much money, especially now that the sports betting economy is here, that they all want to be in the sports betting economy, yet they seemingly have no idea how to do it. Like, I even see large gambling companies starting projects, yet not involving anyone from the actual gambling space. When it comes to content, they're like, oh, well, this guy ran TV over at, I don't know, NBC or something like that. He's a TV guy. He's going to know how to do this. And like, yeah, the structure and planning of how to design a network or content or rundowns, that makes a lot of sense. But if it was that easy to do it without people who are already within the space and thriving, like you could almost hire anyone to do it. Like, I don't think like real TV experience, like if you were a high-end producer at ESPN, I don't think that would just make you like, oh, he makes great content. He'll make great gambling content. I don't feel like it really works that way.
No, it doesn't. It doesn't. Like I've seen it. It doesn't translate. I don't know if it's because like I am kind of submerged in it. It just it's pretty easy to tell like when it's just like, okay, this person, they may have some prerequisites, but they're missing some that are just vital. And so it's a weird space because it's so crowded. And there's, like you said, they're coming from all different avenues. And I don't know. Some of it appeals to some people, others not so much, but feels like it's just rapidly evolving week over week.
Well, you say it's easy to tell, and since it's become legalized in Ontario up in Canada, like the two major sports networks have, they've signed their deals. They have these like gambling related topics, and I'll watch it for a minute and be like, this is just outrageous. Like this has nothing to do with reality, but that's me working in the space looking at it. If I was an outsider and seeing that, would I be like sold on what's going on?
Probably. I would think so. Again, I have this discussion a lot at Stokasting and at Oddchopper when we talk about some of these things of if you don't know what's going on, if you have no prerequisites and someone says to you, 6% ROI, 54% win rate, stuff like that, and then someone else is saying to you, 90% winners and 10 fire emojis. If you don't know, you'd be an idiot not to go with that guy. Like, I would probably be like, okay, yeah, that sounds more my speed. The other one, I don't even know if that sounds good. Like, so it's really difficult if you don't know much about the space. You're probably gonna have to learn from trial and error.
You learn from losing.
Yeah, or just being like, okay, this is not realistic. That's the number one thing is like when I hear people, it's just like, okay, I don't really need to hear anything else. What you're saying is not realistic, and you're not putting context on it because, I don't know what exactly the end goal is. It's different for everybody, but yeah, probably learn from losing and realizing like, oh, the lock button is not exactly a lock button.
Yeah, that doesn't tend to even to point back to that like Brooks versus whoever in the live field bets. Like that felt like it felt like some of the freest money besides the Michael Block to miss the cut bet. But even then, like it all ends up, I mean, the Michael Block one didn't end up becoming a sweat, but the Brooks one most definitely became a sweat.
Oh yeah, I mean, I bet stuff all the time that's just like outrageous. And I bet some like Indonesian UFC the other morning. And I turn it on a stream. This guy, whoever I bet, he would have won 100 out of 100 times, it felt like, after seeing it. But also, he could have got caught in one of these, I don't know what, anaconda chokes. And it's just like, you see it in hindsight, but all this stuff, obviously, is just stupid shit happens all the time. Except with Michael Block. That actually was generational wealth, and I missed it.
Yeah, the hard part was because it was minus 300 was trying to find the sites where you would be allowed to parlay that with something else. Like, even if it was like Scotty Scheffler top 20, whatever it might be, just to make it a bit more viable. And once you start parlaying stuff together at a lot of these sites, they're like, oh, you're playing a parlay? Throw however much you want down on this.
Absolutely. I mean, that's where it's like, put it with some weird stuff, round robin it. But again, I think that's all just like the space is evolving. People have to figure out what they want. That's something we talk about a lot too. Like if you want to bet for entertainment, you don't have to worry about most of this stuff. Like bet your guys, build same game parlays, have fun with it, and that's great. If you're being super like conscious of some of that, you probably have to cut out a couple bad habits here or there.
So when you're looking at all this stuff, like if you come from a finance background, it's not that you don't strike me as a math guy, but I feel like you're not there grinding your own projections to bet things. Is it more of the mathematical theory and the game theory behind things, and then you just take who you want?
Yeah, so it's like I'm not great with like statistics, not numbers. Like I'm good with Excel and stuff, but nothing crazy by any stretch. I just think if I have any sort of edge, it's in I understand like game theory, a lot of the poker mentalities really well, and like at the end of the day, it's a game. Like it's a solvable puzzle. So I think that's probably where it is. Because yeah, the finance stuff, it's not like I had like, oh, I just have better projections and I'm just using them. Not at all. I rely on stochastics projections. They wouldn't let me near those things.
There are a lot of most of the top end players just have their own proprietary projections, I would bet, right?
I mean, I think that everybody, like the top guys, their ability to react to news and update everything, like just that type of stuff is, I think, why they have their edges. Yeah.
Do you find it's different in like betting markets now? Like if you're betting on Indonesian UFC, have a feeling you don't know much about that. Like where does your edge come in with stuff like that?
So, I mean, the simplest things, there's still plenty of like, okay, the lower level sports, some of these lines are inefficient and you can kind of find some of that, some of it. So this is the other thing with me. I love the sports bet, but I also love to gamble. Like, so I have a lot of both. Like there are times where I'm just like, I know I can minimize how dumb this is just by like shopping it and doing those things. And I'm just going to let it fly. Like I don't have some secret edge. I just know that it'll probably wash out for the most part. And maybe I'll get lucky, and then I have like my actual work of betting where I'm like, crunching the numbers and trying to find the edges for real.
Interesting. All right. Well, were you watching?
You love to eat.
What's that?
Like, you don't play slot, like you're not a casino person?
It's funny. I've become less and less. I mean, I started gambling by playing at casinos. I had a fake ID. So I'd be going to the casino when I was like 17, playing blackjack. Like,
Oh yeah.
losing my pay. I mean, that's how I learned the realities of gambling, when I was losing my paycheck from working on a delivery truck on mini baccarat, let it ride, and blackjack at the casino.
Let it ride.
Yeah, I'm not one for. I mean, I would always let it ride. Put it that way. Did not turn out also great for my bankroll. But just like, you lose your paycheck, and it wasn't a big paycheck or anything like that. I was still living at home at the time. But I don't know, you just Paul's caught by the camera. I can see him out of my eye here. It just, once you do that a few times, you're like, all right, I need to come up with a much more reasonable approach. And I think the thing that, because of that, and that happened to me at such an early age, when it's not that the money didn't matter to me, it's that it's something that I could have afforded to lose at that time, but it felt like the world. And like that feeling of despair, losing all of the money. I never felt, I mean, I get excited when I win, but the excitement from the winning didn't even come close to the despair of losing. And because of that, at least psychologically for me, it's always kept me betting reasonable limits. Like, hey, if I lose this, no big deal. If I win, I'm still going to be happy. Like, I can go into a casino right now and play $5 blackjack for like 3 hours and be fine. Like, could I play more than that? Yeah, absolutely. I could afford to lose more than that, but I get the same gratification from winning the $5 bet as I do from the $25, $50, $100 bet. So why go up in stakes?
Yeah, that's that's the perfect casino mentality.
Like, it's fun. I like to play blackjack, but that's kind of the extent of it.
No, and that's that's the beautiful part of it. It's, you can go in there and just be like, okay, gonna have some fun. And you can just obviously get lucky, and that makes it even better. But it does help. I mean, not that I'm advocating to start them young, but I grew up at the racetrack, so I feel like a lot of these lessons I got out real early, and it made me a little more aware when I got older.
I can see that. What else do I got here? Oh, were you watching Succession?
Oh yeah, I watched last night.
All right, so you've watched the entire thing. So I've had no one to talk about this with outside of my wife, who I watched it with. You want to talk about Succession?
Yeah, because I asked May, which we watched it together, and she had takes. I had takes.
So I haven't really read or listened to anyone's, because we're doing this right after. So spoiler alert, if you haven't watched the season finale of Succession, we're going to talk about Succession right now. Hopefully everyone doesn't tune out, because I still want to talk about the Sitcom Bracket, which is still ongoing. You can vote on that down in the description. The third round will be starting, as of today, that will come out, and you can vote on that. It kind of felt, I guess Shiv, it felt like everyone kind of got a small victory except for Kendall.
You can rule that out. Definitely not a victory.
But like, even Roman at the end, like when he goes into that bar and orders the martini, like he has like just a small smile, smirk on his face, like, everything that they were all doing was to impress their dad, whatever. But now that they're not involved, it almost felt like, to me at least, how I interpreted it, it felt kind of liberating for him. And even for Shiv, like, just getting at Kendall was a small victory for her. Obviously, Tom and Greg end up fine in the entire thing. Like, Kendall's really the only one, not to say that they're happy, they're probably all unhappy, but in terms of, like, the stage of the entire show, like, Kendall's the only one left without anything, except for billions of dollars.
Yeah, that is a nice consolation, but I didn't have any issues with it. I didn't love like the Shiv flip-flopping that late in it. Maybe that was like a small thing. I thought it could have been a little more like calculated, that she was just like, okay, I'll go this direction, give it to Tom, kind of like resign her fate there, kill Kendall. Poor Kendall. That guy can't catch a break.
No. Now he's got his dad's old driver following him around for eternity.
Yeah, him and Colin gonna have to do a reboot series.
Yeah, I really enjoyed it. I thought this season in particular was excellent.
It's good. Yeah. Shows like that, Mad Men, stuff where like I've heard a lot of people say like nothing happens. That doesn't bother me at all because it's character driven. It's fine for me to just like I could watch those characters just kind of maneuver in their world all day. It doesn't bother me.
Well, it's funny when I've just seen a lot of comparison to other quote prestige TV shows, be it Mad Men, Sopranos, Wire, Breaking Bad, whatever it might be. But Succession, I mean, obviously it has that budget. The way that it's written, the way that it's shot is obviously has the same depth as those other shows. But Succession is just a farce. Like the other shows were, they demanded to be taken seriously, like Job Bluth. Succession didn't. Like there are serious elements of it, but overall, like it's not a parody, it's not satire, but it's just kind of a farce.
Yeah, it's outrageous. Like I get that. I don't know how it stacks up against some of those type of shows. Some of the characters I think are elite characters, and for a story that's not really like it's just like an ongoing thing for 4 seasons. It was good, and most people I feel like always hate every ending on every show was just terrible. I thought this was pretty good. I had no issues with it.
Yeah, it was fine. Like the main question of the show got resolved that they asked in episode 1 of the show, which is, it's funny because people talk a lot about finales that don't live up to the hype or bad finales. I think like Lost is the ultimate example of that, which after going back and watching the finale of Lost, like it wasn't for me, but I understand what it was trying to do and the type of person, like there was just and maybe by the end it wasn't the same, but Lost had 2 very different camps of viewers. There was like the hard sci-fi, what are the numbers? What are all the questions people? And then the other half just kind of liked it because it was on ABC every single week. And the finale appeased those people and not the other people who were the vocal internet people, which will obviously make it seem like it was the worst thing that ever happened. But we don't talk about bad pilots to good shows. The Succession pilot is bad.
I haven't seen the Succession pilot in a long time.
I went back and watched it because I need shows.
Is that where they play baseball?
Yep, it's the one that ends at the baseball diamond. But Roman is married. He has a kid in that episode.
What?
Yeah, he has a wife and a kid.
Okay, I don't remember that at all.
Yeah. I went back. I went back and rewatched the first season, and I know
my mind is blown.
Yeah. I know a lot of people say it's hard to get into The Wire because of the slow first few episodes, but there's just a lot being introduced there. Like the first 4 or 5 episodes of Succession are they're not great. And then it gets really good. Like it just kind of, the switch goes on and all of a sudden it's an awesome show. But I can see why people didn't get into it.
Yeah, I mean that people, especially, I mean, that's from everything we've been talking about, the timelines people, you don't have a month to sell people. Like you better make your TV show pretty good pretty fast because that's all you get. I like Succession. Of shows lately, I mean, there's only a couple of other shows that I like actively look forward to.
We usually have like one new scripted show in the rotation weekly that like we sit down and watch. And that's enough. Like I'm still continuing through Monk as like our background show that we just kind of have on in the house while we're doing stuff at night or sitting in bed watching something. But I mean, that's an old show that you just kind of put on loop. It's the same as when we watch House. Like it's just on. Elementary was another one that we did that with. Just like, oh yeah, it's on. It's like, did I miss anything? Of course you didn't miss anything. It's Elementary.
Yeah, we do that. Yeah, well, we do that with West Wing, Frasier. I'll do it with The Sopranos. We're on a rewatch. Have you seen? So, most underrated show that I've seen recently is Tokyo Vice.
I don't even know what that is.
All right, Tokyo Vice. I'm telling you, put it on the list. It's really really good. 1 season, HBO season 2 is coming out. It is. I'm all about it. Best show I've seen in quite a while.
What's it about?
It's about a American reporter in Japan who like kind of it's a true story, you know how that goes. Based on true events, who infiltrates the Yakuza.
Okay.
Yeah, it's good. I like it. And it's the guy, I don't know who some of these other people might be people. One of the main characters is the guy from Inception,
Which one?
and he's in one of the. He's like a Nolan guy. He's in one of the Batmans too.
Is he Japanese?
Yeah, you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, Ken Watanabe.
Yeah, that guy.
Yeah, he's the guy in Inception who gets left in the Inception world till he's old.
Yeah, that guy. He's back. They got him out of that and they put him in Tokyo Vice, which is sweet.
No, this isn't the show that I started watching. I thought I was gonna say I started watching the show Citadel, but I didn't start watching the show Citadel. I started watching the show that has Stanley Tucci in it. Inside Man, is that what it's called?
I know that movie.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, it is called Inside Man. This is what I started watching. It has David Tennant and Stanley Tucci in it. It's like, I don't know. It's on Netflix. It's really weird. In the first episode, it was like an hour and a half.
The last thing I watched on Netflix, we watched Kaleidoscope, which was okay. Their claim to fame was you could watch it in any order.
Oh.
And it was like, yeah, you can do that, but then it's just kind of weird depending on what order you do it in. So I wasn't captivated by that.
I mean, technically, you can watch any show like that if you really want to.
It was like, okay, yeah, you can watch the last episode and you're going to be real confused.
There was a Black Mirror episode like that. That it was a choose your own adventure type of episode where you could be interactive while watching it to say, hey, do you want them to do this or you want them to do this? And they had enough the algorithm built out that they had the scenes filmed for to piece a particular story together, which is a really cool concept, but
it takes Goosebumps books.
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't Goosebumps. I think it was. The Goosebumps weren't choose your own adventure, were they? Or were they?
Yeah, I think so. I think they were.
I remember
It'd be turn to page 94.
That's right. I had a baseball book like that when I was a kid. That it would be like, hey, what pitch do you want to throw here? Like, what do you want to do in this situation? And you had your three options. You had to turn to whatever page because then you get to see the outcome of what you decided to do. Great way to learn how strategy in baseball. Although I assume that strategy now is probably all completely wrong based on what we know about numbers.
Yeah, that's more true than that, but I'm telling you, that's the type of stuff. Those I'm a firm believer that little lessons like that, they can take you all the way through and understanding puzzles, games.
Just knowing the rules of the things really helps out too. But this show Inside Man, Stanley Tucci is a
Inside Man.
It's like a Hannibal Lecter type situation. He's not a cannibal. He murdered his wife and he's on death row. But he was a professor of criminology, so people come to him with cases, and he deems whether he wants to choose to help or not. But he's insanely smart when it comes to this sort of stuff. So
it sounds like Hannibal.
Yeah, but it's him in prison with another guy on death row, and they just take meetings with people, and he helps solve crimes.
Does that happen in real life?
I doubt it.
Yeah. I'd go doubtful too. I don't know. There's a lot of people on death row. Maybe some of them are helping crack the cases.
Well, what was there was an old, I've had Joe House on the show a few times who does Fairway Rolling. And I think this was one of his things from way back that he wanted to do a reality show called Death Row Caterer, where it was a reality show about what people on their last meal eat.
Okay.
Would you watch that?
Oh, I would watch that. I had this conversation. It's got to be within the last 2 months. I spent hours reading last meals of death row inmates. Fascinating. And then there was a guy in Texas who ordered a shitload of stuff, didn't eat any of it, and then we were like, all right, no more last meals. Tough luck. They just stopped it because of that.
The guy blew it for it. What were the most
blew it for everyone?
What were the most interesting things on the death row meals?
So it reminded me a little of the Masters menu. There were some people, not to take another shot at Bubba, but it's really grilled chicken and a side of potatoes. That's it. That's your big going. Are you kidding? I just couldn't believe there were some real questionable decisions. Probably why they're on death row, because how do you not get something that's at least a little unique?
I mean, these people are on death row for a reason, presumably.
I know. Again, just really bad, questionable decision making. But yeah, a lot of people had just a bunch of shit, and then ice cream is really common, like, mint chocolate chip ice cream on top of everything else, which, have a day, why not?
Wow, you're not really worried about your calorie count at that point, I assume.
Yeah, exactly. Like, what are you going, Diet Coke? Like,
You get
give me a break.
spring for the regular at that point.
Yeah, like, yeah, no, live a little. But yeah, there was a lot of questionable. Then again, also typical, like, take another shot at Florida. Like, I was going state by state. Of course, Florida has, like, it's just like, what are you doing? A lot of questionable decision making on their death row foods.
What would you pick? I don't know what I would pick.
I don't know what I would pick. I go back and forth. So, like, part of me wants to say I would pick breakfast, which I think is, like, outrageous.
No, you see, I can probably get on board with that.
Like,
Just like hash browns, bacon, ham, sausage, eggs, toast.
eggs,
It's hard to screw up too, and it
like everything bagel.
It travels somewhat well.
Depends where I am. Like, if I'm in New York, I'd probably go breakfast. I'm not gonna get like a shitty bagel in like Georgia. I mean, like steak and a lobster tail, something like that, I think is more than reasonable. But I don't know. I mean, pizza. I love pizza.
I feel like pizza's a waste as your death row meal.
Yeah, that's, again, like, then again, I'm not joking. Some of these people, it's just like, you did what? Like, you requested just stuff that made no logical sense. I really can't with some of these people.
I want to hear from people in the comments. What's your death row meal? DFS.
Yeah, death row meal is.
What's the highest priced player in death row meal?
I mean, it's got to be steak, I would think.
I heard a gasp from Paul. Paul, you disagree?
Yeah, I'm celiac, so it's like definitely something like really carb loaded at this point for me. Like something like
Pasta?
maybe something like that. I eat steak all the time. Not that I'm
That's the
bragging.
thing. So do I. So
Yeah, I say so do I, because I really like steak. But I mean, as my last meal, I don't know. You just go get does Cuss just go get McDonald's? Is that what happens? Like, how many of these people are just getting fast food?
yeah, I mean, that's also a poor choice. Even though I had Wendy's yesterday for the first time in got to be 10 years.
And
Pretty good.
I like Wendy's. Not that I
It
have.
was
I don't like Wendy's fries.
fries were all right. I had a chicken sandwich. It was pretty good.
Spicy chicken.
Yeah.
It's good. I would say that's number one power ranked Wendy's food. That or JBC's.
Yeah.
JBC's are excellent.
I panicked a little because I, out of practice, don't go to a lot of fast food places. So I kind of just went for it, but it turned out fine. Then we were picking up sushi. So it was just like extra disturbing. I just had 2 meals.
Sushi and Wendy's, huh?
Yeah. It's just, again, this is what happens when Grillo, there was a lot going on yesterday. You got to cut me some slack. Talk about death row meals. I was basically going death row meal because if he didn't win, there was going to be serious repercussions. Would have been devastated.
If you go on my Twitter page at the PME right now, you can find the updated sitcom bracket, and you can vote in for the third round. And everything's gone pretty chalk so far. When you were on one of the preview shows, I think it's almost gone down exactly how I thought. Even some of like I think there's a big perception versus reality when it comes to how people judge certain things. And especially when it comes to sitcom, comedy, very subjective, and you're dealing with different timelines of the ages of people. So something like Cheers is just naturally going to be overlooked because most of the people, voting in this, presumably on Twitter, weren't alive when that show was on TV. So obviously it's not going to be as popular regardless of its quality. And yeah, it lost to The League in the second round. So Cheers is not moving on yet, but there's a weird affinity for some of these older shows, which I just don't understand. Like Full House, listen, I'm no Big Bang Theory fan, but Full House beating Big Bang Theory, like, those are 2 bad shows.
Yeah, I feel like there's I don't even know how to describe it, but like there are certain older shows that have like a stereotypical kind of like just rating, and some of them I think have just been like solidified as like classics when they weren't and they aren't. I think like Full House might fall into that category. Everyone knows Full House, and I think people like even I think like, oh yeah, Full House, like great show, and then it's just not.
It may have to do that, especially with the demographic that's voting in this, or at least so far, which I assume will continue throughout the rest of the rounds. Like the average viewers of this show and like the age range that they fall into. That as kids, they probably did watch Full House. And here's the sneaky thing. A lot of the stuff that you watch as kids that you think is good is not good. Just you never revisit it ever. So it only ever has that spot and you're like, Cuss, this happens to Cuss all the time. He's like, well, I saw it when I was 7. Of course it is good. It's like, no, it's good for like 7-year-olds, not 35-year-old you. That as kids, you just weren't watching adult sitcoms. You were watching kid sitcoms, which then 30 years later, you think, oh no, that was really good. I remember it.
100%. I mean, I try, it's a fine line with me. There are some things that I have a strong feeling won't hold up. And then I'm just like, just don't ever go back. Just let it be. Because sometimes you do go back and you're just like, yeah, this really didn't hold up. And it's just not made for, that's what a sign of a great show. It's like when it's transcendent of like age groups. There are certain shows on that list that I think honestly get better with age, or just like it has something for everybody.
I can see that. I mean, I go back and I watch Wayne's World every single year. And I don't think that you could drop someone from 2023 into that movie and be like, this movie is hilarious. Like it's very much of 1990, 1991. And like it even makes like specific commercial references. All Mike Myers movies are like this, which is kind of why none of them hold up outside of How I Married an Axe Murderer, which it weirdly does hold up because it's just
never seen that
because it's so bizarre. But like Wayne's World and the original Austin Powers, I guess, hold up the best of all of them. But I don't know. It's fascinating to go back and watch. And I still find it funny because it is funny because I remember the humor of that time. That's still funny to me. But like, that's just not how humor works anymore.
No, definitely not. I have movies. How many Wayne's Worlds were there? There was a bunch, right?
There was only 2.
Oh, 2. I don't know if I've ever seen the second one.
Remember the second one's where he puts on Wayne stock. And it was like, half the movie is ripped from the Doors movie, which no one saw. That had come out like 5 years previous to Wayne's World 2.
It's weird. I don't know if I'm atypical like this. I tend to rewatch not comedies. Like, I'll watch the same normal movie over and over, but I rarely just like rewatch the same funny movie over and over.
What would be an example of a normal movie you would rewatch? Because I rewatch like serious movies, but they're
like
all
True Lies.
Oh yeah, I watch True Lies all the time. I think like action adventure movies, but True Lies is kind of funny.
Oh, True Lies, like Robin Hood with Kevin Costner.
Really?
Yeah, I've seen the movie like well over 100 times, no doubt about it. Like if that's on, just like, oh yeah, here we go.
Was that the one with the Bryan Adams song on the soundtrack?
I have no. It's with Morgan Freeman and
Kevin Costner.
Hans Gruber.
Alan Rickman and Kevin Costner's Robin Hood, isn't he?
Yes.
Yeah, I think that's the Bryan Adams one. Bryan Adams was like a big thing.
I don't know
for like
shit about music.
You know, yeah, like there's the big song in that movie. I think it's. I only know.
And Christian Slater is in that movie.
Everything I Do It For You, from the 1991 film Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves.
You know what's going on. If I was on Millionaire, you would be my lifeline for that kind of stuff.
You just want someone who's next to a computer.
That's you. Look at that.
Yeah, it's me. If I'm at my desk and you're on, is Millionaire still a thing?
I don't think so. After Regis has been dead for quite a while, but they had other people, right?
Yeah, they had Meredith Vieira as host for a while.
Okay. That's right. From The View.
I feel like it's hard to explain what a phenomenon the original run of Millionaire was.
That was nuts. I remember that show when it premiered.
It was a thing. And it was only on for like 3 weeks or something like that.
It was sweet. That was like, of all the game shows, if I could go on any game show, it would definitely be Jeopardy, but the original Millionaire would be up there.
Do you think you'd be good at Jeopardy? Because I always have this conversation with Cust, that Cust knows probably 3 times amount the answers that I do on Jeopardy, but I feel like I would be better than him. I just buzz in quicker.
So a couple different things. One, I tried out for Jeopardy. So I passed the test and I went down and I played real games with the real buzzer. And it's all about the buzzer. I'd say the majority, particularly people that get on the show, they know the answer. It's either nerves, which is an unquantifiable thing, and if you can time the buzzer. So yeah, knowing the answers on your couch, I don't think is a separator. It's a prerequisite, but it's not a separator.
Yeah, just having good enough coordination or timing with the buzzer, and knowing how much to wager, as we saw with with Jeopardy James. Like he kind of cracked the code for everyone. But I feel like everyone that at least is in the betting space for years, that would have been their strategy.
100%. Like these are the little, like people don't know what they're doing. And there's things within the show, like the daily doubles are only on certain rows. Like obviously if you know where you're going and you're bouncing around categories, you know where you're going to go next and the other people don't. There's little things like that could make a difference. I think I would be pretty good at Jeopardy. My problem is I have giant knowledge gaps. Like I have certain categories I would crush, and then I don't know anything about music or opera or literature. So,
well, I mean, this is what happened when we did that trivia game that never aired, and you just didn't know the Real Housewives celebrity husbands. That was tough for you.
That's true. And I believe the other category was, so it was like African capitals, which I'm not joking would be like if I had on trial for my life, that might be the category I would choose. And then it was like wrestlers, and I don't know if I even can name a wrestler. So
how did you miss? We're approximately. I think you're a little bit younger than me, but we're around the same demo. How did you miss wrestling? Because there's a very selective pocket of. I mean, wrestling's huge, obviously, but when it was at its peak popularity in the late '90s was when I think I was 12, 13, 14 amongst like the highest years. You may have been like 9, 10, 11. Maybe we're the same age. I don't know. I don't care to go dig into that too much. People don't like talking about their ages, but like it was just such a magnet for everyone of that age group.
Yeah, it was a me thing. Like I was exposed to it, when I would go to friends' houses, and certainly it wasn't like, like my parents, they didn't care what the hell I was doing or watching. So it wasn't anything like that. I just had watching college basketball. I don't know. I never got into wrestling.
Interesting. I'm looking at the results of the bracket, the second round, and just I really don't care who wins at this point, but I just feel vindicated that Arrested Development knocked off How I Met Your Mother, and that makes me feel very good.
Yeah, we talked about that was the bracket that I was, I came on for, which
has Curb.
Has Curb, and Arrested Development's a phenomenal show. Yeah, it really is.
So it is going to be Home Improvement versus Arrested Development with a chance to go to the Elite Eight. And the top of the bracket is sort of like the internet imploding on itself. It's Friends versus Curb. I would expect in this vote, Curb wins like 90 to 10%.
Yeah, I would agree. And it should, but that's Home Improvement, really.
Yeah, Home Improvement's making a run here. It beat American, like it cleaned the floor with American Dad, then it just beat the crap out of 2.5 Men.
Okay. That's one of those shows. Like, I don't know if Home Improvement's any good, or I just like remember it because it's got like identifiable characters.
Well, you just remember, that's it. That's all you need to know.
Dude, Johnny, huh?
Johnny, huh? What happened to that guy?
That's another one. Like, he's just gone.
Yeah, I mean, Bud Colley never returned from that injury. He must be doing the Anthony Kim insurance settlement. That's the only thing I can think of.
Maybe. I hope he comes back. There's so many guys. Like Chase Seifert almost won yesterday.
I saw that. They flashed because they flashed that towards the end of the Colonial broadcast, like the other tours. And outside of Chase Seifert, that leaderboard just had the best names I've ever seen for people. And the Panda guy was there. Big Norm.
Big Norm. Just the amount of creative players, though, of guys that I know I'm going to have to deal with soon enough. Insane. Even the guy that won. Never heard of him in my life. He must be pretty good.
Apparently he was a mini tour player as of like three weeks ago or something like that.
Of course. Why not? Sure. Everyone's got a story.
Well, here's a story from the bracket. I mean, I told Sia this when he made the seedings. Modern Family was the first number one seed to go down. It lost to It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia.
Yeah. And I'm not surprised. I don't like Always Sunny, but I get why people do.
It's funny because I feel the same way. Like it's not that I don't like it. I just kind of nothing it. Like it's fine. I'll watch an episode if it's on. Maybe I'll watch like 5 minutes of it, but it's never something that I really got into. But it is weirdly popular with a select group of people.
People love that show. Like, if there was like a vote, if you just listed all the shows and it wasn't a bracket and it was just like select your favorite show from this giant list, Always Sunny could win something like that because the number of people that have it just like at the very top is massive, and there's a million other people that have it like 60th.
Yeah, there doesn't seem to be any in between. Either you love it or you just
Yeah.
It's not necessarily that you hate it. It's just you don't have time for it kind of thing. Next round, though, It's Always Sunny is going to take on South Park, which I'm actually very curious to see who ends up winning that. Like, South Park clearly has my vote. Have you watched any of the new season of South Park?
I've never seen South Park.
That's crazy to me. And you've never seen The Simpsons? Yeah. You just don't watch animation? Is that it?
Yeah, never seen. I mean, I've seen Family Guy, but I've never in my life sat down to watch a episode of it.
And on the bottom of the bracket, we get The Simpsons versus Fresh Prince. All right, so we got some real matchups now.
These are heavy hitter matchups.
Yeah, like I mean, The Simpsons should clean the floor with Fresh Prince, at least in my mind. But we'll see. There's a lot of negative Simpsons feedback. I mean, it must be from people who are younger than, like 10 years and younger than me, really seem to dislike The Simpsons.
Does The Simpsons have like overarching like storylines, or is it just
no? Maybe it does now. I don't know. I haven't watched it in years, but and it's still on.
Yeah, I don't. That show's legit. I like.
What else we have? Seinfeld versus Full House. Seinfeld's just going to blow on this. And Scrubs versus The League in the Sweet 16 or the Elite 8. Sorry, is that Sweet 16? Sweet 16. That's a matchup. I mean, Scrubs is way better, but people really. I mean, this started out as a fantasy football show, so obviously viewers like The League, but I couldn't imagine them liking it more than Scrubs.
No, I wouldn't think so. I have no problem with The League. I saw some of that, but Scrubs is really solid.
Yeah. We got Frasier versus Golden Girls.
Okay, that should be. Come on now.
Yeah. And what's the bottom? The Office versus Family Guy. That's a juicy matchup.
That's a tough matchup. Those are two shows that I respect a lot, and I don't really watch either of them.
I think I watched The Office too much, and now I'm just kind of over it. That happens.
Yeah,
with
that can happen.
Yeah.
It definitely happens.
It happened to me with Seinfeld for a very long time. Like, I just watched way too much Seinfeld. It's like, I don't want to watch another Seinfeld now. And then I moved on
back from that.
Well, I moved on to, like, after I went through my Seinfeld, like, every day for 8 years, whatever it was, I finally moved on to Frasier. Now Frasier became that show for me. I'm not quite burnt out of it yet.
We're in a real similar. So the killer with Seinfeld is like, you can watch like, it's on like 4 different channels for 2-hour blocks. And I was hitting so much Seinfeld for years. And then it was just like, all right, I've done some serious damage. And I moved on to Frasier. And it's good because it's not on a ton. So like I get a healthy dose of it every day.
Okay. This is what I want to end with. And I want to hear from people in the comment section on this one too, besides your death row meal. Favorite athletes. Single favorite athlete from favorite sport. I'm always fascinated by this. And I always wonder how much of it is informed by who you liked as a kid versus who you like now, because I feel like the nostalgia of who you liked as a kid, because you actually really like those people. Like, is there any athlete right now you're like, man, I love that guy? Like, I feel like they're all younger than me at this point. Like, I have other things in my life to care about that when I was 8, like, this is all I cared about.
So the weird thing with me, I guess, and I don't know if this influences it a ton, but I've never really had like diehard teams. Like, I rooted for the Jazz when I was a kid. That was probably my favorite team.
Why did you root for the Jazz? Were you a big John Stockton fan?
Yeah. Like John Stockton, probably more back then now when I know a little more about him now. But yeah, my dog's name was Jazz growing up. I like Jazz. I like the Jazz.
So John Stockton would be your answer for favorite NBA player ever?
No, definitely not. Favorite NBA player ever? It'd probably be LeBron.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, I like LeBron a lot.
Oh. See, all mine is weird because like I'm kind of drawing back to when I was younger.
Jeff Hornacek?
No.
He was on those Jazz teams.
Was he on those Jazz teams?
Yeah.
You weren't you weren't a mailman guy?
No, he's also someone who's got some things. Maybe Greg Ostertag. No, he's not the answer either. I'm trying to think of I feel like half of it comes from at least for me, who I used in Madden or in NBA Live if I had a go-to team.
Yeah, well, I think that has a lot. I think that informs it more. Like whether the team that you rooted for, their best player when you were a kid, who you used in Madden, whatever it might be.
Yeah.
More so than you love Grillo. Would you say that Grillo is your favorite golfer ever?
No. Be Rory.
See, weirdly, I think mine is Mike Weir.
Really?
Yeah.
Because he's Canadian?
Because he's Canadian. That's how, when you're a kid and that's all you're watching, especially growing up in Canada, they always highlight Canadian athletes. I mean, it's why Steve Nash is my favorite basketball player ever. And Jacques Villeneuve is my favorite F1 driver ever. Him or Paul Tracy. I love Paul Tracy. I went as Paul Tracy for Halloween.
I don't know who that is.
He was a kart driver. He was sponsored by Players Cigs.
Mario Kart? What are we talking
No,
about? F1?
no, kart series. There used to be whatever the Indianapolis 500 is.
That was yesterday.
Yeah, apparently that was the case. But there used to be two of those series. There was kart and there was another one. Almost like what happened in golf with Live and PGA. That there was one main IndyCar racing league and they split into two and it just kind of went away.
This is fascinating. Now I'm trying to think of okay, I got to go sport by sport.
Okay,
If I can here.
So baseball, I think the stock answer for everyone is Ken Griffey Jr.
Definitely
of a certain age.
Growing up.
My favorite player was Roberto Alomar. They spit in that umpire's face, and that was it's not great. So probably Junior.
Yeah. Yeah, he was favorite baseball player. It would probably be Pedro for me.
Oh, I can see that. I love Pedro when he was on the Expos.
Yeah, I like the Expos. I'm not, even though I'm from New York, the Red Sox never bothered me. Because I don't like the Yankees. So yeah, it'd be Pedro.
Did you have a favorite hockey player? Because this one I do know the answer to. Because I played hockey for 15 years, and I always had the same number, and it was 96 for Pavel Bure.
All right, so Pavel Bure is an absolute boss. I love those Canuck teams. For me, this might be the easiest one. Ironically, it's definitely Sergei Fedorov.
It's funny that we both gravitated towards Russian hockey players.
Yeah, it's definitely, and no joke, if you said I couldn't choose Fedorov, there's a chance I would have said Bure.
They were just the only.
I love that guy.
They were the only exciting players in the early to mid '90s when when the Devils Trap took over, and you had Joe Sakic and Peter Forsberg Avalanche teams, and Nicholas Lidstrom on the Red Wings. Give me some flash.
I hated that. Obviously them and the Red Wings. But yeah, Fedorov. I liked Stevie Y was fine, but no, it was Teemu Solani would probably be third.
I was gonna say Teemu Alexander McGillney would be up there too.
Yeah, there was some dudes. Yeah.
Do you have a favorite fighter? Because I don't really.
MMA fighter?
MMA, make it MMA or boxing.
Boxing would definitely be
Tyson.
Oh, definitely. I'm a little too young for peak Tyson, but it's definitely Tyson.
The only prime from my youth boxing matches, championship heavyweight matches that I can really remember are all Lennox Lewis fights, and really fucking boring.
Yeah, I remember the Holyfield Tyson shenanigans. But I'm trying to think of NFL. NFL is tricky.
Yeah, NFL, it's Doug Flutie for me.
It's who?
Flutie.
Oh.
Being the best CFL player ever And then just for like years, all these CFL guys going to the NFL and being just fucking terrible. And then him going and like actually being kind of good was like, oh my God. And he was little. When you're a kid, you're like, hey, this little dude's pretty good.
Yeah. No, I mean, Flutie's awesome. It would probably be. I'll say this: Michael Vick in college was by far the most exciting player I've ever seen in my life. There's no doubt of him and Peter Warwick.
You know what? I would even say, because I loved USC. Reggie Bush was amazing to watch in college.
Reggie Bush in college, like those couple of guys, probably the best I've ever seen. Warwick Dunn, probably, if I had to pick a favorite NFL player. Him and Allstat, when they had that sick combo, that was so cool.
Then you had those Falcons teams that had Dunn and TJ Duckett.
Oh, God. I forgot about TJ Duckett.
Loved touchdowns. He was like the Michael Turner of his time.
Forgot about Michael Turner.
NFL, there's a lot of guys that you forget about who you were. Someone liked a tweet of mine the other day. Fuck, I wish I could pull it up right now. And it was someone had asked me like a start sit question, like 2015 or something like that. And like some bot went back and liked it. So it popped up. I feel like I didn't remember two of the players. Like I had forgotten about their existence. Is like how long ago it was. Like just how, especially running backs in the NFL, how quickly these guys go away. And especially with what we do as well, where you kind of have to remember everyone on every roster in the moment, week to week, and what they've been doing. That shit that had happened 6 years ago for like 2 weeks that you may have been like, Arlen Harris is always the one that I bring up as the example. Is like,
yeah, I don't know who that is.
It was like 2006, 2007. He came in for Marshall Faulk on the Rams. I think this was when Bulger was playing quarterback. And it was back when we didn't know anything about fantasy, and I was just playing against like my friends, and I picked him up. It's like, well, he's a starting running back. Might as well put him in. He had like 20 carries for 24 yards, but he had 3 touchdowns. Like, okay, maybe we're on to something with just randomly picking up guys who get a lot of touches.
Yeah, again, think how unsolved that stuff was. Yeah, there's a million. I'm just like trying to think of random running backs right now, and it's like there were so many over the years.
Come on.
Ben Jarvis Green Ellis. I forgot about that guy.
Oh, the law firm of Ben Jarvis Green Ellis?
Yeah. Marion Bar. Yeah, man. There was.
And it's funny because it was like it was someone good at running back against like what was clearly like 2 pickups. Liddell Betts was another big one. He like won championships for people with his work in Washington for like the final 4 weeks one year. Almost like Rashad Penny. Like Rashad Penny, like 2 years ago, did the same thing. And like we will completely forget about that probably by now.
Yeah, I forgot. I never played fantasy growing up. See, this is stuff that like I never was in like I think I got thrown in, me and my friends had like a season-long league, but I never took it serious. I never played like fantasy sports growing up.
See, I didn't until I got to college. I started playing like last year of high school, and then like first year of college, we got into like everything, even fantasy golf. Like the only reason I'm into golf now, like I played golf, but I didn't give a shit about the PGA Tour outside of majors. But we started playing because we always played on Yahoo for our baseball and football leagues. And they're like, hey, play fantasy golf. It's like, all right, we got nothing else to do.
Yeah, I mean, I never would have got into it if they didn't shut down college football. I was like, well, this is a problem.
Why isn't college football allowed to be played DFS-wise in New York?
There are no rhyme or reason.
Just cause?
Literally, there's just like stupid. There are stupid clauses within the stuff, and no one takes the time to just be like, oh, we should just like fix this.
Because it was, I think I had made mention last week when I did the show with Brian Hooper about like the taxes that people have to pay in Ontario of why DFS isn't around. And someone actually kind of like, schooled me up on it. Like that's part of it. But the other part of it is too, and I think there's a problem with poker in the States, is that for whatever reason, their legislation is that there is daily fantasy in Ontario, but they can't play with anyone outside of Ontario.
That's the problem with poker for sure. Like I'm not super well versed on this, but I'm pretty sure like you can't, like Delaware. It's like, oh, they have poker, but they can only play with people from Delaware. So there's just not enough people like liquidity wise, and they can't take like New Jersey, which also has poker, and then other states and combine it, which would be the solution, obviously.
I'm never going to find this tweet.
Yeah, I'm interested now. But...
Yeah, see, so am I. Maybe it's on my phone. Twitter's hard to use these days. And
I miss poker.
and I have to pay for Twitter Blue, which sucks. Remember when I got maybe you don't remember. I got shadow banned on Twitter, and the only way that got me out of it was paying for Twitter Blue. Savvy on there.
What did you do to get shadow banned?
I have no idea. I think I posted an NFL clip for 5 seconds that I recorded off my TV.
Yeah, that's the algorithm still got you.
That is the only thing that I can think of why that would have happened. Come on, find this. I'm going to find this immediately after the show. I will text it to you, and someone can remind me. Someone can remind me to bring this up. It's just all Grillo stuff. I retweeted your tweet about Grillo winning, and all of a sudden people are like, "Hey, love this."
Appreciate it. Yeah, it's I'm gonna research more death row meals.
You should really come up with like maybe try to make a menu, because I did that for Super Bowl, where you could construct like a Super Bowl food menu, and I gave everything a price. Maybe you can do that for death row.
Maybe I won't. Some people are just like, I don't care. I'll take what they're serving today. I guess they're just like fully
they're
defeated at that point. Yeah, they're tired, but
I understand that if you're on death row.
Oh yeah, that's fine. That is fine. What I don't understand is like you're like, all right, no, I'm into this. I'll just take like some grilled chicken and carrots. Like what?
It's a very healthy meal.
Yeah, like what do you just a salad? Like I would say we should, I mean, obviously pun intended, like those people should be executed, which we got it covered, but like what are you doing? Stuff like that tilts me more than it should.
Never gonna find it. All right, Ben Rasa.
Like cheesecake. Oh,
I mean, I like cheesecake, so that's.
I can't get into cheesecake. Cheesecake Factory also just nope.
I've never been there. That's a big Jeff Feinberg thing. Cheesecake Factory. Don't they have everything on the menu? Isn't that their deal?
They have like everything on the menu, and maybe it's because they like tell you, but it feels like it's like, oh, like a salad. 78,000 calories, and you're like, that seems not possible for obvious reasons. Everything at the Cheesecake Factory is like you're going to die. You might as well just go out and take fentanyl or something, because the calories in that place is insane.
I find that at any of that style of place that there is legitimately nothing. Like you might as well just go all in on the most unhealthy thing that you can find, because you're right. Like like you can get like the very base salad, which actually isn't what is on the menu, because what's on the menu, like you said, like a salad will be like 2,000 calories. You're like, all right, what's the point of eating this salad? I might as well get something like decent for 2,500 calories. Yeah.
Yep. I agree. So it's not that I haven't been to the Cheesecake Factory in a long time. I can't even remember one, but I also don't know if they have to have cheesecake, but like, are they synonymous with it?
I actually have no idea.
Yeah, it's very shady. Anyway, that's all.
Do you think we'll still get the Michael Block movie?
But what?
Remember Michael Block, the golfer?
Vaguely, from 2 weeks ago. What about him?
Yeah. Do you think his story is a movie anymore? Or is it over for him?
No. If it is, it's going to be on like Lifetime. He missed. He flew too close to the sun.
Well, did you see his clip about the one that like?
Oh, I saw it.
But I didn't think he was wrong. Like he's kind of right. If he could drive the ball like Rory McIlroy, he'd be one of the best players in the world. Fuck, if I could drive the ball like Rory McIlroy, I would be one of the best players in the world. It's like impossible to do. That's why Rory's so good.
It was just a stupid way to say things, and just a way again, awesome story. I don't have anything really against the guy. It felt like he flew a little too close to the sun, and it's easy to do that, but it's like, yeah, there's still a big gap between like catching lightning in a bottle and being able to do this every week. So he learned that at Charles Schwab.
Yeah, I really found it odd how people like actively rooted against him.
Yeah, that was a little much.
I just thought that was strange. Like, is there like an air of jealousy that goes along with this, or like you felt like this guy wasn't deserving? Like after like some of the stuff came out, especially the Rory comment, like people really tripled down. But even before that, it's like I'm fucking sick of this guy. Like fuck him. It's like it's actually a really good story.
Yeah, most of that stuff, like I certainly wasn't rooting for him, but most of the stuff that I found like really annoying wasn't his doing. It was just like some of the circumstances. It's an amazing story, and I wish it could have been more about that but part of that I think is his fault. Like he kind of hijacked the conversation a little bit.
I mean, did he hijack the conversation, or was everyone just sticking microphones in his face all the time for the first time ever in his life?
That's where it's really tricky because, like, you start can't take it back. You say one thing, and then you're like, now everyone, yeah, he's like a villain, which again I think's a little much.
Yeah, the villain label probably did. I mean, maybe that's truer to real life than the story that we were being given anyway. But like when you're just some unknown guy making a run, like you're gonna be the Cinderella story. It could be like a random 14. Like who was the Sister Jean team in the tournament? Loyola, was that?
Yeah,
them?
Loyola.
Yeah, like when they made their first run, it's like, oh my god, this would be great if they won. Not knowing anything about them except they were a 14 seed.
It's a cool like stuff like that is what makes all this stuff great. And then like most things, people I think end up, rooting against poor Sister Jean in the end.
Is that because, I mean, I want to say, is it because of social media? But do people always feel that way? Because I feel like if that happened in 1996, people would just be like on board and like positive about it because you wouldn't hear any of the negativity. But now all you hear is the negativity.
Yeah, I think it's because of social media.
But was it always that way? It just no one had a forum to express those thoughts? Or is it because of social media that people are like that?
I think that the platform allows those thoughts to be like solidified more, and it becomes more prevalent because of it.
All right. That'll do it. Oh, there's that. It's funny. Robinson Chinhoy won the Zanico when I was looking for that tweet. This one came up. Robson Chinhoy was the guy that we bet on to win the Kenya Open like 3 years ago. He just won the Zanico Masters on the Sunshine Tour.
I was going to say, I thought you were saying that was I'm like, I've never heard of that NFL player in my life. Okay. That's the golfer. There you go.
At JazzRaz, DFS, Stochastic.com. What's the gambling product that you guys are always shilling? It looks kind of cool.
It really is. Honestly, I've been doing a lot of work over at oddshopper.com. Oddshopper. It's fun. It's cool. It's a lot of the similar stuff that you talked about today, where it's just like it's a lot of really good data. Obviously, helps you if you're into betting, kind of take it to the next level and see what's at least out there, because there are a lot of tools that can, even if you don't know what you're doing, you can always get a little better. And so I've been having a blast over there putting out content.
All right. Again, at JazzRaz, DFS, you can follow Ben over there and get in on his Emiliano Grillo victory lap. Maybe bet him again. See if you can double down and win along with Ben at the same odds that he had last week in a much stronger tournament, right?
Yes.
I'm not going to bet Grillo, but I didn't bet him last week and he won. So what do I know?
Imagine he wins again.
That would be kind of crazy. He'd be a shoo-in for that.
That would be nuts.
We'd see him in Montreal on the President's Cup team.
That's true.
You should drive up for that.
Maybe. I've never been to Canada.
How far from the border do you live?
Pretty damn far.
Oh, really?
But
I assumed you were like 2 hours away.
No. Honestly, I mean, I guess it could be, but no, I'm not. I'd guess like 8 hours, maybe.
No, it can't be that long. Like from New York, like down from Manhattan to the Canadian border isn't that long.
Well, I mean, I'm not that far from Manhattan.
Yeah, but just to get out of Manhattan takes like 2 hours.
That's fair. Yeah, like geographically, I'm not that far. Like I said, I don't know what I'm talking about. Isn't like Plattsburgh the very top
of what?
New York.
I don't know that much about New York State geography.
See, Jeopardy knowledge. You got to get. Okay, let's see. Montreal. Go to Wanda.
I'm gonna guess 7-hour drive to Montreal for you, or you could take the 30-minute flight.
So we got 5 hours and 20 minutes.
That's not that far.
300. No. Or I could fly from Newark. Yeah, that's not going to happen.
I mean, I'm sure you could fly there from other places too, not just Newark.
Yeah, no, I'm not doing that. Oh yeah, it's absurd. You just go north. Like
Straight up.
dead
yeah.
north. Straight. Like I am in line with Montreal.
And you never knew it.
I didn't. What the hell is that? What's Laval? That's a wild name.
Laval?
Well, I'm calling it Laval.
Well, Laval's like an outskirt of Montreal. It's the predominant Laval University is the dominant Canadian football university powerhouse.
Oh yeah, I got one random question to ask you before we go. What's the deal with Winnipeg?
Why do you ask that by chance?
Just because with the hockey playoffs, like some of the cities seem like pretty, I don't know, like normal, and then like Winnipeg just seems like it's like not a functional city or something. Like it's just it had a different vibe.
Well, I would recommend that everyone follow Andrew Patterson at Hustlerama on Twitter, who does like Winnipeg local, friend of the show. Paul raised his hand. Like, I've never been to Winnipeg. My wife went there for work for 2 days and she came back. She's like, I am never fucking going there again.
That's the kind of stuff I hear about Winnipeg.
But I've met people from Winnipeg and they say it's quite nice. So, I mean, maybe it's because where you're from, but Paul, you can answer this. You've been there. Doesn't it get to be like minus 90?
I've spent a lot of time in the province of Manitoba. We'd always have to hang out in Winnipeg for like 3 or 4 days. It's the only place on earth that I've ever been asked for a spare shank on the street. Somebody asked me like late at night, like, you can have a cig, man, but like if I had a shank, I wouldn't give you my spare one so that you can turn around and stab me with it.
And take my other one. Need that shank.
Yeah, there's a lot like people, they put like quarters in like socks and they use that as a weapon. Like down at like Portage in Maine, like right downtown, it's rough. Like you feel it when you're walking around those streets.
Yeah, is it like medieval? I'm a little confused at why everyone needs weapons.
It's a rough. If you don't have street smarts, you can get yourself in trouble walking around at night.
Yeah, it's funny.
Well, we'll cross that off the list.
Well, as of 2017, it had a population of 750,000 people, so 750,000. Like it's large enough to support an NHL team. Like where we're at is not large enough to support an NHL team. Although I don't know, Paul, you've now been to both. Like, does Winnipeg feel that much bigger than here? Like, does it seem like more like a city?
Halifax is a lot nicer. Like it's
more
you have the beautiful waterfront. Like I don't know, Winnipeg just feels very like it's a city, but it's like it doesn't have like the night. Like I don't know, it doesn't have the nice scenery. I suppose.
I suppose that's the thing with a lot of Canadian cities is that you have like very scenic cities, Ben. Like we're on the coast here. Like Vancouver is just like the really nice version, the bigger, nicer version of Halifax, and they have mountains at the same time. That's directly on the coast. Like you're on the lake in Toronto. Montreal is on the St. Lawrence River, and like it's very historic. It looks great. Like Quebec City is just a very, very old city. You have the water in Ottawa. Like Calgary, Edmonton, Saskatoon, Regina, Winnipeg, like they're just in the middle of the it'd be like if there was a really big city, like if Helena, Montana had like 2 million people in it or something.
Yeah, that is kind of wild. Because like I just associate because of the teams. Like you got the Jets, you got the Flames, and then it's like some of those cities when I look at the map, it's like they seem like they're in literally the middle of nowhere.
They are, and there's nothing around them. Like everyone lives in that one spot. Like I don't know what the population of Manitoba is, but I would have said it's like here. Like I think the population of like the greater Halifax area is like 550,000, and there's 1 million people in our province. So over half the people live in the city. And I would guess it's probably close to that for Manitoba. Manitoba population.
And like
Manitoba's population is 1.4 million and 750,000 live in Winnipeg. And it's huge. Like Canadian provinces make Texas look tiny.
oh yeah, I know. Well, that's like what happens if you go to like
North?
Whitehorse or like Yellowknife. Like those are the only cities I even know up there because they're capitals. Like, do people live up there?
Cam lived in Whitehorse.
Gotta be freezing.
Yeah, I mean, I don't really know anyone who's ever like Paul. Did you ever go up to the territories?
No, I've been to like Fort Mac, which is like northern Alberta. I've been to Thompson, Manitoba. I've been like northern
Been to
Quebec,
Connecticut.
where like there's like signs that are just like, if you don't have a full tank of gas, turn around, because there isn't one for like 600 kilometers. So, I've been all over this country to places that like nobody has ever seen. It was all my tree planting days, mostly.
Yeah, like what do you think the population of Whitehorse is, man?
I mean, I couldn't even venture a guess. It's got to be low though. Like what, 50,000?
25,000.
Yeah, that's tiny.
And
that's
like
What? Where is that?
80% of the population.
Yeah,
of, like,
that's in
the
Yukon.
territory.
That's in the Yukon. You said?
That's Yukon. So right next to Alaska.
How many people live in Yukon?
41,000.
Yeah, I figured. Like, if you're not
What are those
living in
other
Whitehorse, you
16,000
don't have
people
power.
doing?
I mean, a lot of it's like indigenous, being that north. Like people who just live in the Arctic.
What do they speak?
Inuit, I think, is the language. I could be wrong on that.
Okay.
And there's probably like localized dialects up there as well.
Yeah, I should go up there.
I don't know if you want to go. Like, if you live up there and you're Canadian, like I think when Cam went up there to work in media when he first got a job. So I mean, I suppose I could ask Cam about this, but you get like isolation pay for living up there. Like stuff is fucking. If you think inflation's bad, move to the territories and see how much stuff costs.
What, it's crazy expensive?
Yeah, like nothing grows there. Like everything is an import.
And everything
Yeah, I
has
guess
to
that
be
makes
imported.
sense.
Like, yeah, like if you want like a case of pop, it probably costs you like $40. If you want like
Yeah,
a
that's
seal cut up, it probably costs you like $12. But
Or a shank, yeah. Okay.
Yeah, well, I think it's 9 out of 10 Canadians live within 100 miles of the U.S. border. Like everyone lives like kind of to the south in Canada.
Yeah, I got to go up to.
You can make it to Montreal pretty quickly, it seems.
Well, that's too crazy. If I'm going, I'm just going straight to the Yukon.
I mean, I wonder put in how long that would take to drive from your house to the Yukon. I bet you would take over 5 days.
5 days?
It's probably twice as long as driving to LA.
Yellowknife. Is that what I can't wait. What are we looking at?
Whitehorse.
God damn it. Oh my God. This Yellowknife is far.
Yellowknife is Northwest Territories. Whitehorse is even farther.
What the hell's, I'm just looking at a map. What's Nunavut?
That's another that was established in 1999. Iqaluit is its capital. It was a part of the Northwest Territories, but then it became its own territory.
So I would have to take, first of all, this route has tolls, which is unfortunate.
That's too bad.
Yeah,
can't go now.
Yeah, I can't get that's really a deal breaker. It would take 60 hours.
And what would it take to drive to Staples Center? If you just plug that in.
Not 60 hours, I'll tell you that much. 42 hours.
And you're more north. Like you're kind of in the middle, I would say, north. I mean, Whitehorse is probably much more north, but it doesn't look that way on a map. Like the scale. Remember that West Wing episode where they talked about the scaling of maps?
Yeah.
Yeah, Canada kind of falls into that a little, especially the northern part of Canada. Like when you look at Canada and the U.S. on a map, they look like relatively the same size, but Canada's way bigger.
I'm just like, and again, this is what's disturbing. Like I consider myself like really well versed with geography. I'm looking at a map right now, and it's just like, Nunavut, this like gigantic piece of land. I just didn't know that was a thing.
Friend of the show, Tim Butts, the other Tim, is from Iqaluit.
Baker, yeah, I gotta go. I'm going to Baker Lake.
I don't think you're ever going to get. You can barely leave your house to go get Subway
Subway.
or Wendy's.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah, when I say I'm not going to Subway, but if I go Baker Lake, Nunavut, population 2,000.
That's a lot, actually.
Nice. Yeah, they know what's going on here. It looks freezing.
It's like in the Arctic Circle.
Yeah, there's caribou, muskox, wolverines. What the hell's a sick? This is too much.
What is a sick? What is that?
This is what's wrong with society. You click it and it just says squirrel. So just say squirrel then.
Yeah, maybe it's the localized squirrel. Squirrels are different everywhere. When I lived in Toronto, they were huge. Here, they're not so big.
We have black squirrels here.
That's what they have in Toronto. It's like they're giant, but the squirrels here are like this big. They're very tiny. They look like chipmunks, but they're not chipmunks. They're squirrels. Well, this was a fun end.
Fascinating.
It's too bad people tuned out at 37:12.
Yeah, they missed a lot.
When the 60 seconds Succession spoiler party happened. All right, rate and review on Apple Podcasts. Follow me at the PME. Vote in the bracket. Smash like, sub to the channel while you're here as well. Thank you all for watching. I'll see you next time.
That Mayo experience! Experience!